Professor Anton said in one of his recent videos, "Why can't God be otherwise than being?" And it's an interesting question. There are some theologians who have tried to ascribe to God, uh, try to describe God as being itself, as the ground of being. Certainly, this was Paul Tillich's view. It's a view of a lot of Christian existentialists, but I believe Heidegger, whose philosophy obviously centered around being in many ways, it said uh, that for God to make sense, God cannot be being itself. God has to be a being. Um, and I think there are important reasons for this. Um, but I, I'm like Tillich, in trying to describe God, has to say that that every attribute we ascribe to God about love and goodness and all those things would have to be a metaphor if we're talking about just pure being. Um, and so I prefer Whitehead's view that God is indeed a being. He is the ultimate actual occasion, who gives who brings forth creativity to other to other actual occasions to help them actualize themselves in higher ways of greater emergence. Um, and what I find interesting in Whitehead's cosmology is that he doesn't have God as the ultimate metaphysical ground. For him, the metaphysical ground, the ultimate foundation, not the metaphysical foundation is not God, but what he calls creativity. So it says creativity precedes both God and the world. The God and the world mutually arise from one another and mutually depend on one another. Um, actually, and and so it sounds like you're giving creativity a certain ontological priority to it, but his point is that the creativity itself is not actualized. There is no it's it's simply everything existing in potentiality. And giving that to kind of ontological priority um, would seem to contradict what many people want to conceive about God as being ultimate. But if you look at many mystical traditions, it actually does make sense. In Hinduism, they distinguish um, uh, between God as Ishvara, which would be either Shiva or Vishnu, or sometimes Shakti, depending which school you follow, um, and then which is God with attributes, God as a being, and then there's Brahman, which is being itself. Which sometimes they talk about Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman being God with attributes, and then Nirguna Brahman being uh, beyond all categories, including God or not God. And similarly in the Kabbalah, you have the 10 Sephiroth with 10 different God names for one God. But then beyond the Sephiroth is a thing called Ensof. It means limitless light, and that I think is very is comparable to what Whitehead called creativity. Um, and and so similarly, Meister Eckhart differentiated between God and Godhead. Um, God as the being of pure love and light and goodness, and Godhead is the non-dual reality, which is beyond all categories, including God and not God. So, um, I guess I would want to say that God, yeah, I would want to agree with Heidegger that God cannot be being itself. God has to be a being, but that beyond God and the world is being itself, which is a non-dual reality, which is not in which God and the world are both categories with categories, but the higher reality is beyond all such categories, beyond even theism and atheism. So it's my little spiel about God and Godhead. Enjoy. All right, peace.